Alright, today on the Man Cave, it's part of my continuing series on refreshing my DRZ400SM. In this episode, I'll show you guys how to reassemble the swing arm and rear suspension. Now in my previous video, I showed you guys how to disassemble all of those parts. We pulled off the rear suspension and the swing arm, as well as that rear brake. I have since then cleaned out all the parts as best as I could, got into all those little bearings and pivot points, cleaned all of those out, got a little bit of powder coating done, a little bit of paint, and the parts are looking really good. I've also rebuilt our rear brake caliper and it is ready for assembly onto the bike. So we'll get a little bit of repacking done on some of these bearings on the swing arm, and we'll head out onto the bike and get the job done. Alright, here we are. This swing arm is looking pretty good actually. We got some paint and powder coat done. Big shout out to our friends at Kratos Custom for a top-notch paint job. And we're now going to turn our attention to some of these pivot points that we have over here. As you can see, these roller bearings and these thrust bearings that came out of there at this point are nice and clean, but they are dry. They need to be repacked with grease. Pretty simple operation. We're just going to be filling it with grease and making sure that all those parts go back the same way. Now you'll notice I also changed out some of these worn out plastic and rubber parts on the swing arm, so it is now back in really good condition. So yeah, we're just going to go in with some grease and get these roller bearings packed with grease. Alright, now these thrust bearings were heavily greased, so we're going to have to get some grease back onto these. I'm just filling all sort of voids and gaps where water can enter. And that guy came in over that. Alright, let's not forget our linkage. Again, needle bearings in there need to be repacked as well. Alright, now we've got all of those bearings and pivot points repacked and re-greased, and we're just about ready to reassemble. Now, one of the things I wanted to do before I got back to the actual assembly was to adjust my rear suspension. I wanted to add a little bit more preload, get a little bit more shock length, and just raise the rear of the bike, a little bit more attitude, make it turn in a little bit quicker. Now, you've got two adjustment points here. You've got the locking ring and the adjustment ring itself. Get your shocks into a vise. Use a piece of wood or soft jaws and make sure you protect all of those softer aluminum parts. Now you're going to need some kind of a punch and a C-spanner. You're going to tap away. You're going to tap away at that lock ring to move it away from the adjustment ring, like so. So once that is loose, you're going to use your C-spanner to just either tighten or loosen the spring. In this case, I'm going to add a little bit of preload, move those the distance between those two eyes a little further from each other to give the bike a little bit more height in the rear. So I'm just going to make my adjustment now, and I'm technically adding preload, so I'm screwing down this adjustment collar. Once that's done, obviously you bring your lock ring back down and tap it back into a lock position. And voila, you've adjusted the preload of your rear shock. Alright, we're back outside with the bike. We've got all our parts lined up and we are ready to install. Now we've got a lot of space to work here now with all of the parts off, so we don't have to go in any particular order. I think I'll start with the shock, come in from the bottom, get it bolted up, get that swing arm on there, the linkage of the dog bones, and just sort of get everything lined up before I button everything up and get to work on this rear brake. So. Alright, the shock's in, the swing arm is on, we're going to get our linkage in. Now this is the shorter, or the shortest, of the 3 bolts that you pulled off from here. The bolt came in from this side, a little bit of a tight squeeze, and the linkage comes in from this side. Alright, our dog bones will connect to our swing arm up over here, but before you bring that down, you want to tighten all of your shock mount bolts. Now, quick word on torque values: about 40 pound-feet for your shock mounts, and about 70 pound-feet for your linkage bolts. Alright, now our swing arm is back on. It's looking pretty good. Everything's bolted down nice and solid to the proper torque specs. We're now going to turn our attention to getting these reconditioned brakes reattached. Got a few added parts just for some added bling over there. So we're going to get this hooked up, get this brake plumbing sorted out, and we'll perform a brake bleed. Alright, no great mystery here. I've got my reservoir filled with fresh brake fluid, new crush washers at the banjo bolt, and I've got my vacuum bleeder attached to my bleed nipple. I'm going to open that nipple up. I'm going to pull a vacuum and start pumping and pulling the fresh brake fluid through these brake lines. Now, once I have a nice steady stream of brake fluid collecting here, I'll close that off, check the pedal feel if it's nice and firm, and once I have that feel that I want, the brakes are bled. Alright, at this point I've got good pedal feel. I can see the pads making contact with that rear wheel, and it's got a nice firm feel to it. So I'm just going to pop off the reservoir until the maximum level, and I'm going to button everything up. Just a few more things to get back on there. Our muffler, some side panels, the seat. We'll get everything buttoned up and we can call it a day. Alright, a bit of a long day in the workshop, but the bike is back together, and it hasn't looked and worked this well in quite a long time. Now we got that rear end sorted out. We've got some nice movement now on that swing arm. Rear suspension is working a lot better. We've got some nice firm brake feel at the pedal, and we cleaned and adjusted the chain, so the bike is getting closer and closer to tip-top shape. I have a few more details that I want to get to work on, and I'll share those with you in the next episode. I hope you guys learned something new right here on the Man Cave.